This is BamaCentral's Courtside. Alabama fell tonight in the Final Four, 86-72, in what it was a really exciting game. Alabama left it all out on the court, but it just wasn't enough going into an offensive drought late in the second half. I'm here with Blake Byler and Katie Windham right here for BamaCentral. Blake, what was your biggest takeaway Alabama's first time in the Final Four?
I think really they just ran into a team that was just much better than them. I really don't think there's much else that goes into it there. I didn't think Alabama made some key mistake. I didn't think they were necessarily ill prepared. I thought the game plan was decent. I thought they made some shots in the first half that kept them in the ball game. We were just talking; they went 8 of 11 from three in the first half. But ultimately, UConn just kind of wore them down. I thought defensively it was going to be really hard to get stops against this team, this UConn team, but I didn't think Alabama played poorly defensively necessarily. It's just that's a UConn team that executes at a really, really high level. And so whenever you have a team playing that good of basketball and doing it at the level UConn was, it's going to be really hard to beat them. And I think that's just the team that Alabama ran into tonight was a team that was playing their best basketball, a team that is looking to go back to back for the national championship, and that's just how good UConn is.
We saw Mark Sears with 24 points tonight, Katie, but the theme of this year's tournament has really been who's playing the Robin role, the second role. Tonight, Aaron Estrada and Grant Nelson both kind of took turns in that, doing that for Alabama. What was your biggest takeaway outside of Mark Sears?
Yeah, I mean, Grant Nelson finished with a double-double. He obviously had the thundering dunk right here behind us over Jonathan Clingan that was probably the loudest the stadium got in the second game today. Overall, there was more Purdue fans here than any other fan base, and so the first game was a little bit louder. But that everyone in the stadium, except maybe the UConn fans, got really fired up after that dunk. And so, he had a good night offensively, rebounding. And I think it's just you look at the stat sheet, like you said, there's no area that just jumps out of this is why Alabama lost. It's just UConn's better. I mean, maybe points in the paint, UConn had 38 compared to Alabama's 26, but overall, Alabama did what they needed to do to hang in with the number one overall seed for most of the game. And I think maybe the final score doesn't necessarily reflect how close the game was, but probably does reflect that UConn's just the better team, and I believe will be the favorite to win the national championship, to repeat as national champions on Monday.
The national championship's on Monday night. Alabama won't be in it, but we had a great time here at the Final Four. Alabama's first time at the Final Four. Blake Byler, we saw two of the best big men in the country, the best big men in the country. Alabama in its first Final Four. What are you going to remember next week when you're thinking about your experience here?
I mean, I think it's just cool the fact that over the course of this season, like we didn't really think this was something that was going to happen. I mean, you look 3 weeks ago, and Alabama had just lost to Florida in blowout fashion in Nashville. All three of us were there in the SEC tournament, and you didn't really think this March was going to be anything special. You didn't think that it was going to go maybe even to the second weekend. But no, over the last 3 weeks, we've seen Alabama kind of defy the odds and make a run that Alabama basketball fans have waited a long time to see. And so it's been cool to be able to be here and to witness that and to kind of watch history be made as far as Alabama basketball is concerned. But also, you have to think that the future is bright with this program and with what Nate Oates has built and established here in just 5 years as head coach. He's accomplished a whole lot. So there's no reason to think that Alabama can't be in contention for another one of those things or another one of these appearances. They're set up really well to continue to be in contention for a really long time.
Lastly, Katie, I want you to elaborate on that. Alabama state of the program. You've made it to the Sweet 16 last year, went out a little bit earlier than people expected, but really had a great run this year. Nate Oates and his five years here at Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, I think the program's in a great spot. Even we go back to Nashville, Alabama loses, doesn't look good, but that day Nate Oates got his contract extended. Has one of the biggest buyouts in college basketball, has one of the best contracts. So he's pretty locked into this program, I think, unless I feel like there's very few jobs that that will pull him away from Alabama. And with the nature of college basketball now, we don't know he'll be back from this team.
Yeah,
we have some ideas. Most guys are pretty vague in the locker room. So it's hard to know, but knowing what Nate Oates is bringing in with the recruiting class, knowing some of the guys that will come back, like Jaron Stevenson and probably Rylan Griffin, there's a lot of guys with NBA decisions, transfer portal decisions, but this program and this team are in a really good spot. Now, is it realistic to expect them to get back to the Final Four? I don't know, because that's a really tough thing to do, but it's certainly something they want, and certainly something that can happen again under Nate Oates.
We've had a great time here in Arizona. Alabama unfortunately lost 86-72 here in the Final Four, but it was a great experience, and ideally, Alabama will be back in the near future. For BamaCentral, this has been Courtside alongside Katie Windham and Blake Byler. I'm Joe Gaither.